45 years before she departed this world in 2014, a woman named Eleanor Vance heard a phrase coming from the between-lives state of one of her hypnotized patients that she swore she would never forget for the rest of her life. The voice speaking through that patient was not the patient's voice. It was something older. It was something that knew things no one in that room could possibly know. And what that voice said was exactly this: that most human beings spend their entire lives chasing things that are, at this very moment, chasing them. And that the only reason these things never arrive is because the person is vibrating in an identity that says, in silence, every single day, that they are not the type of person who receives. Today, you are going to discover why some people seem to attract miracles naturally, while others remain waiting their whole lives. And you will understand, perhaps for the first time, why this video found you today. Because it did find you. It wasn't chance. It wasn't an algorithm. It was recognition. Comment below now before continuing the phrase "I am ready to receive" if you feel somewhere deep in your chest that this transmission arrived at the right moment. Leave the declaration recorded, because what comes next only works for those who recognize it. Eleanor Vance was not a mystic. She wasn't a stage guru. She wasn't a spiritual social media influencer, because social media didn't even exist when she began. Eleanor was born in 1931 in Seattle, Washington, and was simply a housewife married to a sailor in the U.S. Navy. An ordinary woman, a woman who cooked, raised children, went grocery shopping, and who in 1968, almost by accident, was invited by a doctor friend to observe a hypnosis session for obesity treatment. It was in that room on that day that something inexplicable happened. The patient, under deep hypnosis, began to speak as if she were someone else from another time, describing places she had never visited, with details that no subsequent research could refute. Eleanor was never the same again, and what she did from that day forward would silently change the way thousands of people across the entire planet understand what we are. During the following 45 years, Eleanor Vance conducted more than 15,000 hypnotic regression sessions. 15,000. Pause and breathe in that information. It wasn't 10 sessions, it wasn't 100, it wasn't 1,000. It was 15,000 dives into the subconscious of ordinary people, across every continent, in different languages with different backgrounds, who entered expanded states of consciousness and said repeatedly, startlingly similar things. Eleanor wrote 19 books. She created her own method, Aura, Advanced Universal Regression Alignment, which is practiced today by thousands of facilitators in over 50 countries. And in all those years, in all those sessions, in all those voices speaking from the between-lives state, one message repeated itself. A message that the retail spiritualism industry never wanted you to hear in its original form. Because if you heard it, you would never again need to buy half of what they are selling you. And that message is this: life does not respond to what you desire. Life responds to what you believe you are. Repeat that mentally. Life responds to what you believe you are, not to what you ask for, not to what you visualize with force, not to what you scream at the universe during a full moon. Life responds with silent precision to the identity you inhabit when no one is looking, to the internal state you carry when you wake up, to the frequency you emit when you are taking the bus, washing the dishes, waiting for the light to turn green. That is the real transmission coming out of you. And the universe, or what Eleanor called the source, simply confirms it. Think now of someone you know who seems lucky. That person for whom everything seems to work out, who receives opportunities without asking, who walks into a store and gets a discount no one else was offered, who meets the right person at the right time. Have you ever stopped to observe how that person speaks about themselves? Have you noticed how they move through the world? They don't see themselves as unlucky. They don't wake up checking for what might go wrong. They assume without having to think about it that life works. And because they assume it, life confirms it. Have you ever had the uncomfortable experience of feeling like you are living the wrong life? Of looking around and realizing that everything is apparently in order, but something inside you whispers that this is not the version of you that should be here? If you recognize that feeling, then pay close attention to what comes next, because that is exactly where Eleanor touched with the most care. You feel like you are always chasing things. Chasing money, chasing opportunities, chasing relationships, chasing recognition, and everything, absolutely everything, seems to slip away just as it gets close. Almost. That interview almost worked out. That person almost replied to you. That money almost cleared. And almost became a pattern that hurts in a very specific way, because almost is worse than never, never sets you free, almost keeps you trapped. And meanwhile you observe apparently ordinary people, with no more talent than you, no more intelligence than you, no more effort than you, receiving absurd things, promotions, inheritances, encounters, apparitions, and you wonder deep down, without wanting to admit it, what exists in them that doesn't exist in me. What Eleanor Vance discovered, session after session, regression after regression, is that the problem was never a lack of effort. The problem is that you are operating through an identity that was constructed out of fear, out of scarcity, out of limitations inherited from people who aren't even here anymore. You are vibrating a version of yourself that was assembled by survivors. People who needed to teach you to be suspicious, to doubt, not to dare, not to shine too brightly so as not to draw attention. And that identity stuck. And that identity is, at this moment, transmitting a signal. And the universe is, at this moment, confirming that signal with extreme fidelity. Most people who watch videos like this believe in an inverted sequence. They believe that first the money arrives, and then they will feel abundant. That first love arrives, and then they will feel loved. That first luck happens, and then they will feel lucky. And this belief, while apparently logical, is exactly what keeps the door closed. Because reality, according to everything Eleanor documented in nearly half a century of work, operates in the opposite direction. The feeling comes first, the identity comes first, the belief comes first, the frequency comes first. And only then, as an inevitable consequence, does matter reorganize itself to confirm it. And here lies the uncomfortable question. What if your current reality is just the reflection of the identity you assumed without realizing it? What if what you call bad luck is simply an old vibration being confirmed with surgical precision? Stop for a second. Don't rush past this question. Feel what it does inside you. Now I need to tell you something that might hurt a little. And it is exactly here that most people need to stop. Many people watch videos like this. They feel inspiration. They feel hope. They feel that good chill down their spine. And then, 2 days later, 3 days later, nothing changes. Why? Because they keep going back, on autopilot, to the same identity. They keep waking up as the person who struggles, as the person who waits, as the person who believes they need to prove their worth before receiving anything. You can read all of Eleanor Vance's books. You can intellectually understand every concept of manifestation. You can take notes, underline, and bookmark pages, and yet you remain stuck. Because knowledge alone does not change frequency. Understanding is not embodying. Information transforms no one. Identity transforms. And it is exactly at this point that I need to tell you something before we continue. Because I know you are hearing this, and you feel something moving. And I know that if I leave you now without giving you the bridge, you will go back to the same identity tomorrow morning. There is a reason why you have been manifesting for years and stay at the same bank balance. There is a reason why you visualize, give thanks, and write affirmations, and yet material life insists on not responding. The problem is not the universe. The problem is not a lack of faith. The problem is that your field is leaking. Your frequency is leaking exactly at the points where the old identity is still dominating. And that is why a system called the Abundance Anchor exists. It is not just another manifestation course for you to accumulate knowledge. It is a field reprogramming, structured over 28 days, based on what Eleanor and other researchers of expanded consciousness, like Julian Thorne, discovered about frequency, identity, and resonance. People who spent years reading about the law of attraction without results reported concrete changes in bank accounts, job opportunities, and apparently impossible encounters within the first cycle. What years of theoretical reading do not give you, a structured reprogramming does. Slots are limited because the guidance is close. The access is in the first pinned comment below this video. You have been manifesting for years and stay at the same bank balance. The problem is not the universe, it's your leaking field. The abundance anchor reprograms this in 28 days, or you admit it was just an excuse. But before you decide, I need to show you the next layer of what Eleanor discovered, because without it, not even the best system in the world will work for you. Because what she discovered was this: all reality is born from an assumption. You are at this very moment assuming something about yourself, now, while you listen. Some assumptions are so old that you don't even realize they are assumptions. You think they are facts. Money is hard. That is one example. Nothing works out for me. That is another. I need to work harder than others to get the same results. That is another. Luck never chooses me. That is another. These phrases are not fleeting thoughts. They have become your natural state. They have become the internal temperature of your body. They have become the background screen of your consciousness, and the universe is, with extreme obedience, confirming each one of them with events that seem like external proof, but are, in truth, a mirror. And here enters the silent villain, what Eleanor called in the deepest sessions, the programming that keeps you asleep. There is, all around you, an entire structure that needs you to continue believing that abundance is difficult, that luck is rare, that worthiness must be earned through suffering. I won't name institutions. I don't need to. You feel it. You feel it when you turn on the television and everything is scarcity. You feel it when you go on social media and everything is comparison. You feel it when you talk to certain people and leave feeling heavier than when you arrived. There is a system that benefits from your disbelief in your own infinite power. There is a gear that profits from the fear of your own brilliance. And that gear needs, every day, to reinforce the small identity, the identity that waits, the identity that thinks it needs to ask permission to receive. For decades they classified, hid and ridiculed what researchers like Eleanor Vance, Julian Thorne and so many others documented with seriousness. And now it is your turn. This video found you today because some part of you is tired of staying asleep. Write now in the comments the phrase, "I receive the message," if you feel you are ready for the next layer. Do not skip this command. The declaration carries weight. It registers in your own nervous system that something is changing. And keep listening, because what comes now is where everything reorganizes. How abundant people think. This is one of the most consistent observations in almost 5 decades of Eleanor's work. People who live in states of real abundance, not Instagram abundance, but functional, continuous, sustainable abundance, share something invisible. They do not live in desperation. They do not live chasing. They do not live begging. They live assuming. Assuming, in the most technical sense of the word, that they belong to the world of people who receive. When an opportunity appears in the lives of these people, 3 things happen internally, almost simultaneously. They believe they can receive it. They believe they deserve it. They believe it is possible. There is no hesitation. There is no half-second pause where fear enters. There is no internal saboteur whispering, "This is too big for you." Their internal vibration is aligned with the opportunity even before the opportunity arrives. That is why the opportunity finds their address. Meanwhile, the person trapped in scarcity lives in 4 automatic movements: doubt, hesitate, refuse, sabotage. Have you ever caught yourself refusing something good because deep down you felt it was too good to be true? Have you ever caught yourself hesitating to send that message, to accept that invitation, to ask for that fair price for your work? Have you ever caught yourself sabotaging, in small ways, what was starting to work out? If you recognize this, there is no reason for judgment. There is reason for understanding. Because abundance does not arrive to convince you that you deserve it. Abundance arrives when you have already assumed in silence that you deserve it. Perhaps your life doesn't need more effort. Perhaps it needs a new identity. And the most powerful exercise Eleanor recorded, at various points in her work, is also the simplest. That is why it is so easily ignored. Tonight, before you go to sleep, before sleep pulls you under, close your eyes. But do not visualize. Visualizing is a trap when done the wrong way, because it keeps you as an observer. Feel. Imagine we are 6 months in the future. Your desire has already happened. The money arrived. The person appeared. The opportunity materialized. Everything worked out. And now, lying in your bed of the future, ask, how does my body feel? How does my mind think? How does this new version of me walk through the world? How do they answer the phone? How do they respond when someone asks, "How are you?" How do they breathe? You are not creating a fantasy. You are training your nervous system to recognize a new identity as possible. And when the nervous system recognizes an identity as possible, it begins to vibrate at that frequency, even while you are still lying in today's bed. And what you assume before sleeping becomes the frequency you carry upon waking. And what you carry upon waking is literally the invitation you send to the universe the next day. Eleanor heard from the voices that spoke through her patients, a phrase repeated in infinite variations, session after session, over decades. And that phrase, at its core, was always the same. Life responds to what you believe you are. Life responds to what you believe you are. Not to what you want, not to what you dream of, to what you believe you are when no one is measuring. This is the refrain. This is the axis. This is the heart of the transmission. And that is why so many people read, study, take notes and stay stuck. Because they don't change what they believe they are. They only change what they want. And it is exactly here that the system I mentioned earlier makes a real difference. Because the abundance anchor doesn't teach you to desire more beautifully. It leads you day by day for 28 days to change the underlying identity, to reprogram the base frequency, to close the points where your field is leaking energy to old identities. And that is why people who tried everything, every method, every meditation, every mantra, report that something finally moved when they went through the cycle. Access remains in the first pinned comment. Slots, as I said, are limited because the follow-up requires presence. If you feel this transmission found you for a reason, consider it. But the decision is yours, and it only works if it comes from the right internal state. Now listen carefully, because what comes now is the great revelation. You were never abandoned. You were never forgotten. You were never without opportunities. Feel the weight of that sentence. You were not skipped by the universe. You were not placed on a cosmic exclusion list. What happened is different, and in some aspects it is harder to accept because it returns the responsibility to you. What happened was this. You assumed in silence, without realizing it, for years, perhaps decades, that you were abandoned, that you were unlucky, that you needed to struggle to receive any crumb. And reality, faithful as always, simply confirmed that identity with events that seemed like proof, but were only an echo. Today you can choose something else. You can, right now, this minute, while you listen, assume another identity. You can assume that life works in your favor, that opportunities find you, that abundance recognizes your frequency, that luck is the name the universe gives to people who stopped doubting. And here is the uncomfortable provocation, and I need to be direct with you because no one else will be. If a year from now your life remains exactly the same, it won't be because the universe failed you. It won't be because you didn't deserve it. It won't be because destiny conspired. It will be because you continued feeding every day the same old identity. It will be because you heard this video, felt the chill down your spine, and went back to the small version of yourself the next day. The lottery of your life, and I don't just mean a literal lottery, I mean the configuration of extraordinary events you were born to live, is already looking for someone like you. It already has your energetic address. It is at this very moment tuned into your frequency. The only true question is this: are you still assuming you are the person who will never be found? Because if so, even with the universe working in your favor, it cannot deliver anything to you. Not because it doesn't want to, but because the package arrives at the address, and the address says this person doesn't live here. I want you to comment now before this video ends the phrase "it is already mine." Not the phrase "I want it," not the phrase "I ask for it," not the phrase "I deserve it," the phrase "it is already mine." Because the identity that receives is not the identity that asks. It is the identity that recognizes what already belongs to it. Write in the comments, "It is already mine." Leave it recorded. Leave it vibrated. Leave it anchored. And if at this moment something inside you moved, if something grew restless, if something recognized, then you know what you need to do next. The abundance anchor is in the first comment. 28 days. Either your life reorganizes, or you accept that perhaps you were indeed just feeding excuses. The decision is yours. And the decision must come now, while the frequency is open, not tomorrow, when the old identity is already back in command. The universe is not waiting for you to become worthy. The universe is waiting for you to assume that you already are. The moment that identity changes, reality begins to reorganize itself to confirm your new truth. Eleanor Vance spent 45 years of her life documenting exactly that, in 15,000 sessions, in 19 books, in thousands of hours of transmissions that survived her death in 2014, and that continue at this very instant, finding the right people at the right time. This video is one of those transmissions. You are one of those people. The lottery has already found you. The question that remains is whether you will be home when it knocks on the door. The door is open. The address is your internal state. And you have just received the key.